So last week, my friend Marcello over at GameCube Galaxy tagged me in a video and wants me to do a video response for it where I give you my 10 most memorable games. But because I'm me and I can never stick to the number that's been provided to me, you are going to actually get a dozen. What's going on, everyone? I'm Jay, my channel Square Pegs. Welcome to the channel. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button down below. Now, one of the things about this video, I'm going to try and not bring up games that I've talked about repeatedly in the past. There is one that I've mentioned before and talked about ad nauseum, but I'm going to go in a little bit more detail as to why it's so important to me. But not going to hear anything about ToeJam and Earl, not going to hear anything about Blaster Master or Sonic the Hedgehog 2 or anything like that, but there's going to be a couple in here that I've talked about in the past, but I'm going to expound on them a little bit more. Now, chronologically, let's take a look at my most memorable games. Alright, so why Super Mario Bros. 2? So first and foremost, it is my favorite Super Mario Bros. Game, even more so than Super Mario Bros. 3, and I know that's sacrilege for a lot of people, but the memory behind it is kind of what puts it ahead. There's nostalgia goggles definitely involved with a lot of these games, but Super Mario Bros. 2 for me is something that is important to me because this is the first game I ever bought with my own money. Now, when Super Mario Bros. 2 released, I was nuts for it. I had gotten the Nintendo Power in the mail, so I saw the cover with a claymation on it, and I just knew that this is a game that I needed to own. And my mom worked at a camera shop in Massachusetts at the time, so it released in October of '88. I was 9 years old, and it was something where when the game released, I was so excited to get it, but we didn't have a lot of money at the time, but the store my mom worked at allowed me to go in and actually work on a display in the front window in the mall, and I was able to get the game with the money that I earned. And we didn't buy it the day of. It was a legitimate paycheck. It was something that I actually got a check cut to me for, and I had to wait till it came in. But I remember we went to, I want to say it was the Toys R Us, and it was in Braintree, Massachusetts. I remember that much. No, Brockton. It was in Brockton, Massachusetts, at the Brockton Mall. And we went to Toys R Us, and we picked up Super Mario Bros. 2, and I remember the entire drive home just pouring through the manual and looking over every single detail in there because I was so excited to play the game. And I knew a lot about it leading up to it, but everything I knew from Nintendo Power. So getting into the game, like this is before the days of, internet videos or anything like that telling you about the gameplay. It was only what I had in Nintendo Power, and I remember getting home and popping it into my NES and just absolutely falling head over heels in love with the world of Subcon, and it's to this day still my favorite Super Mario Bros. Game. And I am so thankful to my mom for bringing me in on that one, and yeah, that one means a lot to me. Alright, next up is Ninja Kid for the NES, and now I know you're probably asking yourself, Jay, why Ninja Kid of all games? Why that hot mess of a title? And I'll tell you why, because I've mentioned the story in the past about the year I got a ton of NES games for Christmas, where I got things like Blaster Master and Mega Man 2 and Simon's Quest and things like that. And it was a phenomenal year, but the one that sticks in my head more than anything is Ninja Kid. And I don't really know why, other than the game frustrated me to no end when I was a kid. It's a very difficult game. Like, even today, it's a hard game. And I remember this was the first game I remember playing that I wanted to do better at because it was so hard to play and because it was so hard to get through. And I never achieved that goal. And that game just frustrated the hell out of me. And it was something where, of all the games I got that year, like Blaster Master is eternally one of my favorite games, same thing with Simon's Quest, Mega Man 2 is my all-time favorite NES game. But for some reason, like when I think about that Christmas and I think about those games, and I remember it's when the Simpsons first got their animated series, and I loved Krusty the Clown. I thought he was fantastic, I thought he was hilarious, and I remember it was this big-ass box of video games, and it was to Krusty from the Simpsons. And that's the thing I think that I memorized, that I remember the most, is that gift tag that said "To Krusty" from The Simpsons, because I loved Krusty so much, and I remember my mom writing that one. And yeah, just Ninja Kid. Like I was nuts. I was mad for the Ninja Turtles at the time. So I think anything with a ninja on it, she was just like, "Yes, we'll get that. We'll get that. We'll get that. He'll love it." And I played it, and it wasn't one that I went back to frequently, but it is the one I remember most immediately from that Christmas is Ninja Kid, of all games. All right, I've talked in the past about how much I loved my original Game Boy. I got the original Game Boy at launch with Tetris, and it was something that I adored, and I still love to this day, and those are some of my most cherished memories. Like, the Game Boy got me through trips from Fall River up to Berkeley to go visit my aunt and uncle, or trips over to, trips on the T up to Boston, and it was something that I loved. And the game, other than Follow the Foot Clan and other than Tetris, the one that I played the most was Motocross Maniacs. And it's something where the game itself is very simple. Like, it's a plussed version of Excite Bike, basically, where you have nitrous and things like that. And it's just a very straightforward, very simple, like, you're a very tiny little motorcycle on the screen, and you're going through these, kind of over-the-top courses where you're doing loop-the-loops and things like that. And I just remember playing that game in the car, in our little red Hyundai. God, I don't remember what it was. Whatever the first year that Hyundai came out, we had a little red Hyundai. And I remember just, either driving that up to, like I said, up to Berkeley, or being in the back seat to get up to Braintree to hop in the T to go to Boston. And it was one of those things where it was a way for me to distract myself. And it was a game that, playing it now, it brings back all these memories these positive memories of playing on the Game Boy and how much I loved that system. And this is the first time I've played it in, gosh, I want to say 15, 20 years. Probably longer, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But playing it for the first time now and going back to it, it was such an incredible rush of endorphins and dopamine to have something that familiar back in my hands and playing it, and just remembering what I needed to do, and still being just as terrible in certain spots as I was when I was a kid. And man, just so many family trips and so much fun playing that, and handing it off to my cousins and letting them play when I was visiting them or things like that. It's just, I loved Motocross Maniacs, and yeah, that's one of my favorite Game Boy games because of those memories. All right, next up, I've talked about NHL 95 a lot in the past, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about my friend David. David and I met when we were 8. We met through a mutual friend named Nick, and we were thick as thieves almost immediately. David and I just clicked. We were inseparable from jump. I would visit in the summertime, and the first thing I would do when I visited my grandparents in the summer, after I said hi to them and got my bags unpacked, is I would call David, and I would run up to the end of the street, and we'd go over to his house and play, or he'd come from my house and play. And as we got older and we got into high school, we drifted apart a little bit. We had different goals, and David's was to be himself, and mine was to not be myself and kind of hide who I was and try to fit in with the popular kids. And I was not a good friend for a few years. I really wasn't, and it means a lot to me that we're as close now as we are. And NHL 95 was one of those games that we played together. We used to go over to his house, and I used to go over to his house and play it on the Super Nintendo, or he'd, like I've mentioned in the past, come over to my house and play it on the Genesis. And yeah, it was, I wasn't a good friend for a while. And it's I mean, it sucks to admit that, and I don't think anyone wants to say things like that, but knowing the way I treated him, I wouldn't have blamed him if he never spoke to me again. And it was it was very important to me to make those amends and to reconnect. And I'm terrible at this. I've never apologized for. I don't apologize. I just don't. I never apologize for the way I acted or for the attitude I had or anything like that. So, David, thank you, and I'm sorry, and I'm glad you're still my friend. Okay, next up, I've talked about this briefly in other videos, but Ivan Iron Man Stewart Super Off-Road Racing was the first arcade game that I ever really just fell in love with. Now, I'd played other games. I'd played Mario Brothers. I'd played Donkey Kong. I'd played Pac-Man and things like that, and those are all fantastic, and I loved them. But Ivan Iron Man Stewart Super Off-Road was the first one that blew my mind. Like, it was the first one I realized where you didn't have to just have a joystick and buttons, you could have a wheel and pedals and things like that. And by this time I was living in Florida with my grandparents in Cape Coral, Florida, and the Super Wal-Mart there in Cape Coral had a Super Off-Road cabinet in their entranceway. Remember back in the day when Wal-Mart used to have arcade cabinets in the entrance, or claw machines and things like that? Yeah, man, those were the days. And we used to steal quarters from my grandpa, and we'd bike up to Super Wal-Mart and we would just play Super Off-Road, or I want to say there's a Street Fighter cabinet too. And Street Fighter, you know, that's another obvious one that I think everyone has a memory of. But Super Off-Road, man, like, realizing that you could do something more with an arcade than just move or, you know, eat ghosts or things like that, and actually like have a steering wheel. And, you know, this is before I was driving. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So, yeah, and you could, I remember with Super Off-Road, at least the one at the Wal-Mart near us, the wheel was either free spinning or it was busted and was a free spin. So when you would come to like one of those hairpin turns, you would just yank on that wheel as hard as you can just to do like a Tokyo drift around the corner in your little truck. And it just blew my mind, man. Like, I loved that game so much. I spent so much money on it, and it's, to this day, I still love it. Like, booting this up on Mayhem and playing it now was like, once I figured out what the controls were, because I hadn't played it on joysticks ever until I did this video. Once I figured that out, man, I was right back into it, and I still love it to this day. All right, next, and this one might actually come a little bit before Super Off-Road, but I'm not sure, because I don't remember playing it before I played Super Off-Road, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. In the arcade, not the NES version, the actual arcade version. And I think I actually played the NES version before I ever played the arcade. Like, I knew about it, I'd seen it, but I never actually played it. And I'm pretty sure the first time I ever played TMNT, the arcade game, was in Mike Greenwells' Bat-a-Ball Family Fun Park in Cape Coral, Florida. Former Boston Red Sox left fielder Mike Greenwell. They had like fantastic batting cages, and that was a place my cousin Greg and I used to go. And when I was playing baseball, he would take me and help me out in the batting cages and try to get me to the point where I was able to hit, because I was a terrible hitter. I couldn't see. I didn't have good glasses or contacts at the time, so I couldn't see a goddamn thing. But we would go, and after we did, you know, probably about a half hour to an hour in the batting cages, we would pop into the arcade. And Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, was one of those games that I just loved. And always Raphael. Kind of hurts me on this one that I'm playing as Leonardo, because he's my least favorite turtle. But it's such a great game. Like, it was one of those first machines like this. The Simpsons and X-Men are kind of all blending together as far as time frame goes, of those machines that were big and just over the top. And I remember the X-Men machine I first saw had 2 screens, and I'm pretty sure Ninja Turtles only had 1, but it had 4 players, and that was a big deal. And I used to, just the lines of people waiting to play Ninja Turtles with quarters up on the dock. Man, that was just so cool. And that was one of my favorite arcade experiences. I wanted to put another one in here as well. There was a Speed Racer arcade game there at Mike Greenwell's, but I couldn't get the ROM to work on MAME, so unfortunately that one isn't in the list. But no, Speed, you are in my heart. Go Speed Racer, go. Moving forward now to the end of my time with the Super Nintendo. I got a Super Nintendo very, very late. I had a Genesis pretty much from jump, and I got the Super Nintendo, I want to say, in 93 or 94. And I remember when I got Super Mario RPG, I got it because of the name Squaresoft. I didn't get it because it was a Mario game, and I was convinced it was going to be terrible. I did not think I was going to like it. And I was so engrossed in RPGs at the time. Like, I was heavy into Final Fantasy, heavy into Dragon Warrior, and I was so bothered by the fact that Mario was going to be an RPG, because Mario was for kids and Mario was silly. I was very, very 15 at the time, and I remember playing it, and I remember, like, after the first fight, I remember thinking, oh, this is good. And it's to this day one of my favorite RPGs, and it was one where I played it constantly that summer. And I think that was the year my grandparents went on like a 3-week trip. My grandfather owned a boat business, and he built boats. And I think they went on a delivery run, and it was like for 3 weeks. So I was at home by myself at like 15, and it was awesome. It was the greatest thing ever. I ate so many pizza rolls and so many bowls of cereal. I don't know how I'm not dead. I ate so poorly. And I made, man, the second they left, I made sure I dropped that AC in that house down to like 66 because it was always hot. It was Florida. And I wanted to be cold, man. I missed the cold. And it was so cold in there. It was lovely. And I remember my uncle visited and said something about that. And he said, you need to make sure that's moved back up before they get back. They're back in a week. So make sure that's taken care of. But I remember it was over summer and they were gone and I was at home by myself. And I remember I must have played Mario RPG for 5-6 hours a day for about a week before I beat it. And it's something I still go back to pretty regularly. It's not an every year play like Suikoden 2 or Mega Man 2 or anything like that. But it's something where the second I boot it up, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. This is why I love this game so much. It's got so much character and so much soul to it. It's just that good. I wanna take you for a ride. Okay, moving forward now to the late 90s, and I have spoken frequently about my time with Friday Night Fights. And Friday Night Fights was an event we would do at my friend Mike's house, where every Friday night we would get together and we would play fighting games. And we had a ton of different games that we would play. We would play Star Wars Master of Terras Casca on the PS1. We would play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighter once or twice. None of us really liked it, though, because it's not that good of a game. Sorry, Turtles fans. Justice League Task Force, Street Fighter Alpha 2, Street Fighter EX plus Alpha, just all these different games that we would play. But one that was a constant, because of how great of an arcade port it was Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on the Dreamcast. And it was the memories I have around that time frame where our friend Gordon, who passed away, was living with Mike at the time, and I just remember, I miss Gordon. I just remember being able to, because I was never great. I think I won once, and it was a fluke. But Gordon and I were like almost always the first ones eliminated, and I remember like just so many moments of Gordon and I being out of the tournament and just talking comics and pro wrestling and talking about what we wanted to do in an upcoming Marvel or D&D campaign, and just oh man. And it was at that time that my friends Rich, Mike, and Chris, and Phil, and Matt, there was just so many of us, and Damon, and it was one of the best times of my life was knowing that every Friday we would get together and we would hang out and we would just have fun. And it was something where we all drifted apart for a while, and a lot of us came back together thanks to social media. And and it was really hard when Gordon passed away. I want to say, I guess it was 2 years ago now. Right after COVID hit, he got into a car accident and passed away. And it was really hard because we're all scattered across the country now, and not all of us could be at the funeral service, but we were all there together on Facebook chat of all things, and just talking to each other and making sure we were all okay. And Gordon was always the one who wanted us to get back together and would always want us to keep talking, and I think that's going to happen.
Both teams are lining up for the kickoff, and we're just about set to get this one underway.
Next up is NCAA Football 2004, and this one's going to be short and sweet. The reason this one is so memorable to me is this is the game that started my career in video games. This was technically not the first game I worked on in the industry. That would be The Sims Online, but I don't think anyone actually counts The Sims Online because it's terrible. But The first one I worked on was NCAA Football 2004, and the one thing I wanted coming out of training class, I was told that make no plans, you're probably going to be gone within 6 months. And I was determined to make the most of my time in the industry because I was convinced I was on borrowed time and I only had 6 months to work. The one thing I wanted to do was work on a Nintendo game so I could have something with my name on it that was on a Nintendo console. And this is my copy that I was given when it released. And it is something that I treasure and I value and is so important to me. This game gave me my career because of this game, this stupid little football game on a console that failed in the grand scheme of things. The GameCube was a failure. This game changed my life entirely, and it was because of this game that I am still in software quality assurance and still working in technology and still moving forward with a career that I was convinced was going to be gone like that. All right, next up, this one to me is memorable because of how important it is to my wife, and that is Paper Mario. I mentioned this briefly a couple of days ago when I was going through my No Fun February list. Paper Mario was so important to me because that was Meredith's first real game. She had played Tetris, she had played other puzzle games or smaller games when she was younger, but gaming wasn't a thing for her. Like, her family just didn't do that. Video games were not a thing in her family, and her social circles, you know, the people that she was friends with didn't play games. It just was not a thing for her. So to come into a relationship with me, where you see everything behind me, she kind of got inundated with games. And I never wanted to push her to play them because I fell in love with her. I didn't fall in love with who I wanted her to be. And I mean, happy birthday today, by the way, sweetie. I love you. And it was really important to me that she discover things organically, and she come to games organically that way, not through me saying you should play this, you should play this, you should play this. Because I mean, literally, the only thing I knew that she liked at the time was Tetris, and that's. I don't play puzzle games. I have no suggestions to offer there. But I remember when I picked up Paper Mario for like $10 at Rhino Games in Orlando. Yeah, I wish I still had that. I remember picking it up and telling her about it and how it was a Mario game, but it was story-based, and it wasn't frantic combat or moving or anything like that. It was, you know, you move around the environment and you get into turn-based battles. And I remember telling her that, and she seemed interested, and I just kind of left it at that. That was it. And the townhouse we were renting at the time had a loft, and that was my game room. I had a little tiny TV that weighed about 9,000 pounds because of a CRT. I hate CRTs. Just throwing that out there right now. That is one thing that Gary from Rock Solid and I see 100% eye to eye on. CRTs suck. And we so we had our CRT up there, and I had my N64 at the time hooked up, and I had Paper Mario in there. And I remember I got home late from work one night, and I remember her not saying anything when I walked in, but I could hear the TV going. And I figured she was just sitting down watching TV down in the living room. And when I walked in, she wasn't there. The cats were there, but she wasn't there. And then I saw her upstairs, and I heard that she was playing a game. And I walked up there, and she was, 8 hours into Paper Mario. And yeah, I mean, that game kind of lit the fuse for her. And she's tried so many other games now. Like, she's got something like 400 hours into Animal Crossing, yeah. But Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because she just wants to completely explore Greece. She has played Breath of the Wild for hundreds of hours. It's just, she beat A Link Between Worlds on the DS. I mean, she is a gamer now, and she has very specific games that she likes, but she's absolutely a gamer, and it's because of Paper Mario. Okay, this one is Monaco, and Monaco is a heist game, and I believe the full title of the game is Monaco, What's Yours Is Mine, and the reason this one is on here is because my friend Corey and I, when we lived together, Corey was our roommate with Meredith and I, and we played Steam together a lot. I was playing a lot on PC at the time, and this game called Monaco came out, and since we were both huge Heist movie fans, we both picked it up. This is the best kind of multiplayer game because it is just absolute, utter chaos when it's 2 players. The game is hard enough as is. Like, it is a straight-up difficult game, and when you start adding players to the mix that are either in other rooms or in other buildings or other states, things just go from 11 to a million in the difficulty spectrum because you each have competing ideas of what you want to get done, and you each have competing ideas on how it's going to happen. And no matter what, you're going to be choosing someone with a different specialty because there's different characters in the game that have different abilities. And as you go, like if you're playing the mole, you're able to dig through walls and break through walls that way, and that's great. But if I'm playing the lookout, I have to be a lot sneakier because I need to scout out ahead. But a mole can just bulldoze straight through. So inevitably, we would play this, and when Corey was living with us, I would have my PC set up, and he would have his PC set up, and we would be shouting at each other across the apartment about what needed to happen and where we wanted to go and what we needed to discover, and just utter chaos, and the best kind of chaos, and just not like chaos in Call of Duty where everything goes wrong and it's uber serious and everything sucks. It was the chaos of, oh my god, I can't believe we succeeded on that. We got through that by the skin of our teeth. Let's do another level. And that was the best kind of game. Just like, he's like, yes, we're doing another one. We're doing another. It's just such a phenomenal game. And if you can find it, I mean, it's everywhere now. It's on the 360. It's on Steam. It's on the Switch, and it's amazing on the Switch. Definitely pick up Monaco because it is one of my favorite games. And if you love multiplayer, this is the game for you. It's that good. Okay, and finally, and probably most importantly on this list is Skylanders Swap Force. Yeah, toys to life. I know it's a genre that's often decried by gamers, but for me, Skylanders Swap Force is important because that is the game. That's the first game my son played. At least first played seriously. He had done a few games before that, like he had played Connectimals and Sesame Street Once Upon a Monster on the 360, but Skylanders Swap Force was the first one that I think really clicked with him. It was the first difficult game. We'll call it that. The first game that was more than just, interact with the screen and wave your hands around. It was, he had to think about what characters he wanted to use and what abilities needed to be in play. And it was something where it was really inspiring, and it was exciting because to me, I mean, I've been a gamer my whole life, and for a long time, Victor showed no interest in games. Like he was casually curious about stuff, but didn't really care. It wasn't something that he wanted to get into. And Skylanders lit that fire for him, kind of like Paper Mario did for Meredith. And we have played every single Skylanders game. We own hundreds of Skylanders figures, like no lie, hundreds of Skylanders figures. And it is because of that game that he is who he is today as a gamer, where he is setting up clubs in his school for gaming and talking to people about getting together and playing online games together. And takes technology classes in school because technology excites him, and constantly has a screen, which I know drives a lot of people crazy, but he comes alive when he's playing games, and he comes alive when he's talking about games and researching games and writing out his own version of what his perfect Pokemon game would be, or designing a game that will never probably be made, but it's important to him, so he's writing design documents and things like that. Like, the fantastic gameplay that Vicarious Visions put into that game is just, it was so important to me and so inspiring. And my friend John, who has sent me some stuff for the channel, he sent me the 3DO. He actually worked at one of the studios that worked on the handheld versions of Skylanders, and I remember when I found out. It was like, I mean, I've known John for 15 years at the time, but it was like I was talking to a rock star because it was that cool that this game that was so important to my kid was something he worked on. And yeah, I will always love Skylanders. I hope the franchise comes back one day because I do think that there's something to be said for that franchise and the things that it did. Maybe not necessarily in a Toys to Life regard, but just I think the Skylanders universe is too vast and too cool to not bring back. All right, there you have it. I was going to try to go for a baker's dozen, but you're just getting a regular dozen. Sorry, I ate the extra donut. And I guess, I don't know. But there you have it. My 12 most memorable games and the stories behind them. This went on for a while, and I'm really sorry about that. I didn't expect it to go this long, but thank you if you're still here for listening. Let me know in the comments down below what your most memorable game is, and I am supposed to tag people to do this, but I'm just gonna say this is an open tag. I was gonna tag Do You Nerd? They've already been tagged. I was gonna tag Retro Rivals. They've already been tagged, and it was just, yeah. I mean, there's so many great channels out there, and if this is something you're interested in, by all means, talk about the games that matter to you and tell the stories as to why, because that's what's important. Please hit like, please subscribe down below if you're new around here, and hey, if you really dig the work I do, consider becoming a monthly Patreon sponsor like the folks you're seeing on screen right now. Patrons get ad-free access early to videos for a donation of as little as $1 a month, and if you want to help support the channel even further, consider picking up some of my merchandise at squarepegsyt.com, where you can find shirts, hats, hoodies, masks, the whole 9 yards. Until next time, folks, I've been Jay. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me today. Until next time, remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.